heater! I dare you to hit it!
You'll be sorry.
Boy, a bigger bat. You want the heater? I'll give it to you.
a basketball, maybe they don't hit it.
A swing and a drive to deep right. Clear the deck. Cannonball coming. Left field. It is out of here.
What up? What's good, Baseball Unstitched? We are back with another great episode for you guys today. We're going to be running down a few things here, Flax. First and foremost, Kade Anderson debuted this weekend for the Seattle Mariners. Fun start for him. Started off extremely well. We'll talk about where it fell off at the end and what he's packing and what we expect to see from him throughout the rest of the season and maybe his career as well. Topic number 2, Flax. The Houston Astros. They were 20-31 in 6 games back as of June 2nd. They are officially tied for first in the AL West race. However, they moved away from Dana Brown officially today. They've let Joe Espada know that he will not be returning as the manager. Potentially, those have been rumored reports, as we're learning. Either way, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Houston Astros and their run to this point, how they got to where they are. And finally, of course, Flax, we are going to knock on, did you know that the Angels might be the X factor in the wild card race down the stretch? Yeah, neither did I. But not only the Angels, Ryan Johnson. Got to give him a little bit of his flowers because right now Ryan Johnson is pitching his butt off, and he's specifically doing it against playoff eligible or playoff teams.
Yeah, you nailed that.
We're gonna start where we always start, though. However, how was your weekend?
Weekend was good. I did a little bit of time in the mountains this weekend, played a little bit of golf, but other than that, not much. I know you had family in town again. How was your weekend?
It was good. We have survived 5 straight weeks, basically, of hosting. I'm including Jackson in there because, we did a lot that weekend, obligations-wise, but a lot of hosting in my household. But we made it. We are at the end of the hosting. It's a great problem to have, so we were very excited to have family in town quite a bit. However, a week of just being is going to be a lot of fun on our end. Flex, let's get right into it. This week in baseball, NL Player of the Week is a guy who is hotter than the sun itself, it would seem. Fernando Tatis, 12 for 25 last week, a .480 average, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, and he robbed a grand slam. He kind of looks like Fernando Tatis that we're used to seeing.
He's playing fun baseball. Like, he seems to be very, very happy playing the game of baseball right now, and it felt like there was a point in time there where that didn't necessarily exist. And I just, in general, love watching him play. But I really like watching him play when he wants to be out there. Now, prior to him hitting his first home run on May 30th, the guy was still hitting .271. He still had a .350 XW OBA. So, he was still hitting the ball hard, still hitting it well, just not a lot of juice behind it. But since then, he has been on another planet. He's been so good since May 30th that I genuinely think if we had gotten to see a full season of this, we'd be talking about an MVP caliber player, because just in that space, he's had 17 home runs. He's hit .305 with a 154 WRC plus. So this week was always coming the way that he's been hitting the ball. On the AL side, do you have anything?
Oh, I was just going to say the Padres are charging. I hope everybody's ready.
Yeah.
The only thing apparently stopping them is Casey Mize in his footing down the steps of the dugout.
You trade for a guy who's injury prone, you're going to get an injury prone player. I don't know what to tell you. On the AL side, Zach Neto, 14 for 28. He hit .500 this week, 7 extra base hits, 9 RBIs. This month of August, he hit home run number 20. He's now 2 more stolen bases away from a 3rd straight 2020 season. And you want to talk about another injury-prone guy who, when we get him on the field, is one of the best? Zach Neto is in that category. Defensively, offensively, one of the best shortstops the game has to offer. You're talking about a guy who has posted in his 4 years at the big league level a full 30 defensive runs saved at a premier position. Really good player.
Zach Neto's feel to hit is so impressive on a regular basis, right? His change in mechanics at times within that leg kick, within putting his foot down, within just leaving his foot down. Kid's got unreal feel to hit. He's been one of the best shortstops, like you mentioned, in all of baseball. We're going to talk a little bit more about him and the Angels as we get down the stretch today. Flax, let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Kade Anderson, arguably the best pitching prospect in all of baseball, debuted for the Seattle Mariners this weekend. And he was pretty solid. His final line at his debut was 5.2 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 5 Ks. 2 walks was probably the most surprising part for anybody who was watching. However, as we know, and something that we would love to get out in front of right now, is that the baseball is different between the AA level and the MLB level. Plus, for the first time, you're pitching on a major league mound. So let's call it what it is. There was probably a little bit from a nerves perspective for Kade Anderson, but he looked really, really good through that first 5 full innings. Obviously, Flax, it came to a little bit of a halt after getting 2 outs in the 6th inning, giving up back-to-back home runs to 2 MLB vets in Alex Bregman and Michael Busch. But Kade Anderson, his stuff looked extremely solid across the board. I'm curious to your initial thoughts on his debut.
You know, I think PCA actually was a big impact in setting the tone. He swung at the first pitch of the game, popped it up, and was like immediately allowed Kade Anderson to take a deep breath. Like if I'm PCA and I know that he swings early in the count, I know he's an aggressive hitter, I know he likes to swing in general, but like if I'm PCA in that situation, I am forcing the kid in the zone. Like, I'm not swinging until I get a strike. I'm a good enough one-strike hitter to go against a young arm like that, who more than likely is going to put a couple of balls over the plate first couple of batters if he is throwing strikes at that point. If he's not, stand on first base. As soon as he allowed him to get his footing and get comfortable into the game, everything just flowed from there. Now, you talked about, making the jump, skipping AAA. Lance Brozdowski had put this out on Twitter, and I thought this, it's interesting to get the numbers specifically against this. For those who don't know, the baseball changes. AA to AAA, the baseball changes. The baseball becomes more like a Major League Baseball. The importance of that, the seams getting lower, is that you tend to not get nearly as much spin on the baseball. And for a guy like Kade Anderson, who generally only throws about 93 to 94, run and spin on your ball are what allow, especially a fastball, to carry through the zone so that you get a lot of poor contact. If your ball follows the rules of gravity, overall it's going to get hit a little bit harder. So going from 18.8 inches of IVB at AA to 15.4 inches of IVB at sea level in Seattle, in my mind, is just a result, that was the word I was looking for, of a different baseball. Now, the curiosity is, should he have made a couple of starts in AAA to get used to it? Maybe. But if you think that Kade Anderson hasn't held or felt a Major League Baseball up until that day standing on a big league mound, I think you're crazy. It's all a process. It's a timing thing for him. I also think there's reason to believe that in your first start, nothing's just going to be your A stuff. It just won't be. You have to learn how to fight through it, which I think he did a great job of for 5 innings.
Yeah, look, unless you're Steven Strasburg, you probably aren't coming out with that type of stuff, which was the most ridiculous debut I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
However, what I would tell you is that if I'm a Seattle Mariners fan, if I'm part of that organization in Seattle, I'm really, really happy with this first start for Kade, right? He's 1 out away from a really clean, quality start where he gives up 1 or 2 runs. He fell into a normal trap that we see a lot of young guys fall into, especially early on in their career, at the end of an outing, where you learn really quickly that you can't throw any type of get me over anything after giving up a home run at the major league level, right? It really does fall into that bucket of like, I can't just throw something, get me over in 3-0. You can't do it after a home run either, right? Because big league hitters aren't going to miss when you leave something over the middle of the plate. you take 2 pitches back, in a literal sequence of 2 pitches back, and you're talking about a potential 6-inning quality start, 1 run given up by Anderson. I thought he looked very poised on the hill. I want to remind everybody, too, one of the big notes here, Flax, is that in that 5.2 inning stretch, he threw 83 pitches. He was pounding and attacking the zone for the most part.
Yeah.
Those 2 walks, I think, are a little bit probably adjustment, right? This is a guy who, in 90-plus innings at the minor league level, I believe it's 90-plus, yes it is, struck out 135 batters to 13 walks. So keeping that into perspective, I mean, you don't expect to see this many walks from him as he gets adjusted. And us saying that 2 walks is a lot, pretty good space to be if you're Kade Anderson. I think Flax 2, what I want to dive into now that we've talked about his debut, though, is I think that people are a little bit, they're overreacting a little bit too much about his fastball metrics and his numbers and who he is. And I think one of the main reasons why is there's a couple things. One, we're talking about a guy who has elite levels of extension, right? For those of you who don't know, extension is basically measured against how far or how close to the plate you're able to let the ball go on release. Kade Anderson is elite in that fact. 6.9 feet is very, very close to the plate compared to most pitchers. Ergo, him sitting 93 to 94 might look like 97 to 98 to most hitters. Additionally, one of the big factors with Kade from the left side is how much run he has into left-handed hitters. It's above major league average amounts of run, and when you're talking about a guy who can control and command the zone the way Kade Anderson does, his ability to sink that ball into your hands purposely, not only on to off the plate, but from the middle back into that edge portion of the zone on the inner half to lefties, this is going to be electric. Additionally, too, this is a guy who can throw a backdoor fastball, in this case to lefties, better than most guys in baseball more than likely because of his command and his ability to be confident of being around the edges of the zone. My note here, Flax, is he had a 40.5% K percentage in AA this year. That's ridiculous. We're not going to see a K percentage like that from him, in my opinion, at the major league level. But what this is going to consistently show is that he's going to get a lot of chase and a lot of weak contact when he decides to be out of the zone. Because that's one big factor that Anderson has over most other pitchers. He's shown us that he makes the decision to be out of the zone. He doesn't accidentally end up out of the zone in most cases. I love where this is going. I think he has top-end potential, no question.
I think the biggest adjustment is going to be times through the order. So, at the AA level, I think he topped out at 80 pitches. That was the longest they let him go. And we talk about this all the time. Health of an arm, health of a player, comfort of a player. Why are we not practicing what we're going to ask of the guy when he gets to the big league level? Makes no sense to me. But what comes along with that is a better understanding of getting through a lineup comfortably a third time through. When you're a strike thrower, the most important thing that you can do when you get to that third time through the order is potentially throwing ball 1. Because once you get that third time through the order, you've mostly shown each hitter everything you're going to consider throwing to them, right? Michael Busch saw 70% sliders, maybe more. Actually, I think it was 80% sliders. The prior at bat before he ambushed the home run, he saw all sliders except for one pitch, which was a curveball. So then throwing him an 0-0 slider up in the zone as a get-ahead pitch doesn't work. Now, you probably could have gotten ahead of Michael Busch throwing a down and away wipeout slider, but you also could have gone 1-0 and thrown him a fastball in on the hands and been just as fine because he hadn't seen the fastball much. Understanding that part of the game at the big league level and how carryover at bats for big league hitters matter so much more. It's not saying minor league hitters are dumb, but minor league hitters are trying to prove that they can hit a fastball. Nobody cares if you can only hit breaking ball at the minor league level. So early in the count, even deep in games, they're still hunting first pitch fastballs. You can use get me over sliders, get me over changeups, and you can be, successful at that. You can't throw a get me over changeup to Alex Bregman when you got him to pop out on back-to-back changeups 2 innings earlier. because that image is still in Alex Bregman's mind of that changeup you threw him, and he ain't going to miss it the second time around. Same thing with Michael Busch on the slider. So he got ambushed back-to-back pitches, third time through the order, trying to get ahead of guys when he probably could have gotten away with getting behind on hitters and then getting back into the zone with something those guys hadn't seen a lot of, which would have been his fastball, especially with those two guys. Again, it's a part of the progression to me that's more focused around how we pitch at the big league levels versus how we pitch to get to the big league level. It's not so much the stuff. The stuff is fine. The stuff is actually great. I liked the way he commanded the pitches. I liked the way he threw what he wanted in counts that didn't necessarily ask for it. Throwing breaking stuff to get ahead early in the count, early in the game. Using the fastball late in the at-bat. Using the fastball ahead and behind in the at-bat. All things that big league pitchers, top of the rotation big league pitchers, have to be able to do consistently to keep their team in the game, to keep themselves in at-bats. So across the board, I love what we saw from him. I just think there's a lot of learning to do, and guys like Cal behind the plate are going to be really impactful in that educational progression for him. It's going to be the next couple of starts to see how he builds off of this. For me, that's going to be the most interesting. Does he totally veer from what he's already done, or does he stick with it and see how deep he can go into games and get comfortable being a front-of-the-line rotation arm in a rotation that doesn't necessarily need him to be a front-of-the-line rotation arm?
Yeah, I completely agree, right? I think that at the end of the day, the Mariners are only going to need so much for him, right? And because of that, it's also going to be interesting to see how Anderson reacts to that. Because at the end of the day, if he goes out there and throws highly competitive starts, going 5 to 6 innings, finding as many quality starts as he can, that's going to be enough for what they need at the end of the day. The goal here is not for Anderson to come in and be that number one guy, though we both know he has the ability and capability to do that at the end of the day. I'm excited to see more of this kid. Surprise, surprise. I would point out, and I'm curious to see what happens, and we want to put this on people's radars now, or I do at the bare minimum, is Kade at the current moment is a 3-pitch mix guy against lefties specifically. 56% slider in that first start. Did not throw a single changeup to a lefty in that first start. We know at this point in Major League Baseball that most of those 1s and 2s that you look at, most of them are throwing at bare minimum 4 pitches to both righties and lefties. My thought process here is simple. As you watch Kade Anderson maturate through his time at the Major League level, don't be surprised if they find a way to add something else to his arsenal to better attack left-handed hitters. I really hope it's a sinker. I recognize that we just love to add cutters and sinkers to everybody, but as much arm side run as he has already, if he can command a sinker that has another, what I would assume would almost be a foot plus of run back into a lefty, watch out. You're probably not touching it. So we'll see. And he'll somehow Greg Maddux it right to the edge of the zone every single time. So I'm excited, Flax. That's really what it comes down to. Let's go ahead and move ourselves down to topic number 2 of the day. That would be the fact that the Houston Astros are officially tied for first place in the AL West at 65 and 66. However, they also just announced today that they're going to be moving on from Dana Brown and potentially Joe Espada, their manager, at the end of the year. This Astros team has been through a lot this year. On June 2nd, they were as far back as they would be all year long, 6 games back of first place at 20 and 31 as mentioned. I thought we'd dive a little bit, Flax, into how they got here. And we have to start with the guy who's been putting the entire team offensively in his backpack for many of these months. And that's Jordan Alvarez, who is playing all-star caliber, MVP caliber type baseball. He's slashing a career best 320, 436, 613. He leads all of Major League Baseball in OPS, being the only guy in all of Major League Baseball that has a over 1,000 OPS. The next closest person, Flax, is PCA. No real surprise there. But he's almost 90 points higher than PCA is. This is unreal what Yordan Alvarez is doing.
Yeah, I mean, he's dog walking the rest of the AL offensively. There's no question in my mind that we're looking at the AL MVP right now. But, across the board, I don't think he's the only guy that you lean on in terms of what this offense has brought to the table, especially not in the second half. Isaac Paredes and Jeremy Pena are playing some of their best baseball. This is exactly what we expected Paredes to be offensively, taking advantage of the short porch and left, the Crawford boxes. Same thing with Jeremy Pena. I would even say that Cam Smith has been better than we expected him to be, right? It's another learning year for a guy that, plays a lot of times in a position that is still a little bit foreign to him. He's finding comfortability out there. It's translating to a more comfortable bat as well. Across the board, this team offensively, I don't really worry about. It's the bullpen that's really, I think, been the problem. They're 2-8 over their last 10 games, including a massive blown lead against one of the worst offenses in baseball in the Athletics right now.
Yeah, I think this is where you and I disagree a little bit. I recognize the bullpen hasn't been as good of recent, but since June 2nd, ironically, the day after is when they would get Josh Hader back, and Hader has been lights out, right? 18 for 18 in save opportunities. So I think when they get the game to him at the back end of the bullpen, right, again, recognize that you got to have your starters go long enough in a scenario like that. I think they've been pretty good. The reason why, for me, I think the offense has to drive this a little more is a couple of different reasons. One, where they're seeing benefit of recent is Isaac Paredes and Jeremy Pena both regressing towards the mean as we expected. They had slower starts, injuries hampered Pena. Paredes is now slashing 278, 372, 467 with 11 home runs in this time span since June 2nd. Pena, 289, 345, 491, 11 home runs, 23 extra bases for him, and he missed, I think he played 10 less games than Paredes throughout that stretch.
Yep.
When the offense has scored 4 or more runs, in July and August, they're in 18 and 14. The offense has to go. Right, I think at the end of the day, they're in trouble because where you then flip the page is if they don't get it to Hader, that middle ground, that 6th, 7th, 8th inning does tend to be where things go awry. The offense shuts down and stops swinging the bat. The bullpen is having issues continuing to move themselves forward and throw good high leverage innings. And then you go to their starting rotation, which has a lot of positive currently going on with the fact that Hayden Wisniewski is back, Christian Javier is back. However, you can't expect guys who have been out basically all year to immediately come back and have feel. There's got to be a little bit of middle ground here. The biggest thing that I see right now for the Houston Astros is the offense has to start chugging at a higher level. Dalton Varsho, who we loved the pickup for, I think a 1-for-1 move with him and Arrighetti was a really, really solid move. I think the Astros were selling high on Arrighetti at the end of the day. Varsho, unfortunately, hitting 169, 17 Ks, 6 walks, only 4 extra base hits in the 17 games since he came over to Houston. We've got to be a little bit better than that. Cam Smith, Christian Walker, they've both been able to get the ball over the wall, but if it's not going over the wall, they're not bringing much other benefit at the current moment from an offensive perspective. Both of those guys, at the end of the day, are just better major league hitters than guys who you're only hoping that the one thing that they do is put a ball over the fence one time a night. Again, that's where I land on the Astros.
It's tough to live and die in that way. I mean, listen, when they traded for Dalton Varsho, he wasn't hitting well in Toronto either. So, this isn't a guy who, showed up to a new place and has fallen flat on his face. Reasonably speaking, I actually think he's been better in the month of August than he was leading up to it, which doesn't say a lot. But again, right, we're still talking about a guy that shouldn't be a make or break piece in your lineup. There's enough here for me to believe that this is a team in a very winnable division, obviously, that cannot go and get swept by 2 division teams, or not swept, but lose 4 of 6 against two division teams that are at the bottom and barely breaking 50 wins. You can't lose back-to-back series to the Angels and the Athletics. It is no question a problem. But those four guys at the top of the lineup should at least be setting the table. It's an issue when you've got guys like Yainer Diaz that are at the bottom of the order and doing nothing. Expectation was much higher from him offensively. On the bench, Christian Vasquez has been what you expect him to be. But on the flip side, starting rotation, Hunter Brown hasn't been what we expected him to be. Right? That's the guy who's supposed to lead the team. That's the guy who's supposed to get things moving in the right direction. The fact that Peter Lambert is going out there and basically posting the starts you'd expect to see from a guy like Hunter Brown, and you don't have both of them doing it, I think is a bigger issue. But I think it's also a great example of where maybe the processes and planning from a guy like Dana Brown over the last 4+ years hasn't necessarily set this team up for success, because this is a very unusual rotation, especially post-deadline, for an Astros team that was, and would like to be, by the end of the season, in a postseason position to try and fight for a World Series. Generally, we see their move at the deadline, move some young guys, go get a star-studded frontline pitcher who can help drive more success in that rotation. When you're not doing stuff like that, it makes the rest of the organization question whether or not the pathway that you're following is differing from the one that got you to the ALCS 7 straight seasons. Right? There's plenty to be said about the other things that, Jeff Lunau did and what Click did after him and, all these things. But before Dana Brown, right, all the way up until I think it was 2023, you had two guys in there that were pulling together an organization that was really well mixed of young players offensively, young pitchers that had been grabbed from other teams, and front-of-the-line rotation arms that were getting added at the deadline that were driving you through to the end of the season. That was the process.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another segment of Jackson's Bullpen. We got a really fun topic going on today. I went through, scoured Fangraphs for probably 20-30 minutes, to be honest, and picked one pitcher at every level of the minor leagues that I wanted to talk about. So I got a total of 6 minor league arms, one from each level that I wanted to talk about. Guys who I think are maybe a little bit underrated, aren't being talked about enough. Some of these guys aren't ranked in their systems at all. So I thought it might be fun. Starting out in the Dominican Summer League with New York Yankees righty Cesar Acosta, 19 years old. He's unranked in the system. So far in 11 starts in the Dominican League, has a 3.31 ERA, 35% K rate, 10% walk rate. And I wanted to introduce a new stat day that we don't talk about a lot, and that's FIP minus, which is similar like ERA plus, except the lower is better, and it is adjusted to the league. So you're thinking like 3.35 FIP, not great. Dominican Summer League, very offensive league. He has a 52 FIP minus, which just means he is 48% better than the average pitcher in that league. He is dominating. He's been amazing. This guy, I think, is going to fly up that system pretty quickly. Next up in the Complex League, I have Cincinnati ranked pitcher Alejandro Rivera, 19 years old as well, unranked in Cincinnati system. He was actually acquired out of part of the Nathaniel Lowe trade at the deadline from Cleveland. Cleveland pitching factor, as you all know. He's an A-ball now, but when he was in the Complex League, 48 inning pitch, 2.44 ERA, 3.59 FIP, 36% K rate, 0.38 home runs per 9, 59 FIP minus, FIP negative, what do you want to say, which means he is 41% better than the average hitter. I'm good at math, I promise.
Good save.
Next up, going to A-ball, I have Pittsburgh left-handed pitcher Ronald Navarro, 19 years old, left-handed arm. He's ranked 21st in Pittsburgh system. He's now in high A, but in A-ball. He posted 2.6 ERA, 3.86 FIP across 69 innings pitched, 39% K rate. Unbelievable. Might have had a 20% walk rate. Don't look at that, but his strikeout rate was at 39%, 77 FIP negative. He strikes out. That's a 59% K or walk rate. If I'm the right fielder on his team, I'm getting a hot dog in that game. Like,
You're sounding like a real analytical head after that comment, my friend.
Lord.
You're not hiding it from anybody.
I mean,
Right,
yeah, it's bad.
Who's next?
Next up at high A, I have Kansas City left-handed pitcher David Shields, 19. He's the highest-ranked prospect on the year's 4th-ranked Kansas City system. Across 106 innings pitched in high A this year, 3.97 ERA, 3.46 FIP, 30% strikeout rate, just 7% walk rate. He keeps the ball first base pretty well. 67 FIP minus. Next up in Double A for the Miami Marlins, I have Elizar Dishmay, 21 years old. He's unranked in the system. When I looked at like the Double A rankings and Double A stats and leaders, it was like Kade Anderson, Ryan Sloan, Anthony Iacin, a bunch of big names, and then this guy who's just unranked in the Miami system. Across 13 starts, he's a 3.08 ERA, 3.18 FIP, 35% K rate to 11% walk rate in Double A this year, 65 FIP negative. Started the year in high A, now in Double A, and is shoving. I feel like he has to be ranked in the Miami system sometime this offseason. He has been unbelievable so far this year. And
that sounds like Peter Bendix's calling card right there, by the way.
100%.
You didn't know who he was, and it didn't matter.
Last guy I have in AAA from Flax's Orioles, right-handed pitcher Yaki Rivera, 23 years old. He's unranked in Baltimore system. Started the year in AA, now in AAA. He's been kind of a flex guy. He's appeared in 19 games with 7 starts, 43 innings pitched, but 3.12 ERA, 3.33 FIP, 27% K rate to 14% walk rate, 0.21 home runs per 9. He's not giving up the long ball. 70 FIP negative. 14% walk rate, kind of fits in, probably projecting as a reliever, but he's still young, just 23 years old. He can sit in the minor leagues for another year or two and develop, get more consistent, get that walk rate down. But I feel like there's a really interesting names of guys who not a lot of people, even analytics nerds, even minor league nerds, probably haven't heard about before. And I had fun definitely just staring at Fangraphs for 20, 30 minutes trying to figure out, looking at these names.
So the real question and where we have to start is, Flax, how many of these guys did you know before the last 4 minutes and 41 seconds?
I knew about Rivera, but that was the only one.
Okay. I knew about Shields and Acosta. So good job, Jackson. Because
and my favorite thing about Rivera is that he is a 6'2", 150-pound right-handed pitcher. To be honest with you, he's all off speed. I mean, he doesn't have a bad fastball. I mean, he's still ripping 95 miles an hour, but we need to get this man in the weight room soon.
Or get him to in and out. Get some burgers in the system. Or
yeah,
something.
just get some weight on the body. We can turn it into muscle at some point.
Yeah,
growing up, I had a plethora of college coaches look at me and say, "I don't care what you eat, just eat anything. McDonald's every day, do it."
That's what Dominic used to say to me.
If I'm the nutritionist of that team, I'm feeding him 2 milkshakes before every single game, like without fail. Like he has to have it.
Get him just get him into an SEC program. Get him into an SEC program for 3 years. He's gonna come out 6'2", 180.
Only comment I have, because I'm honest, I didn't know a ton of these names, so I'm not going to try to provide feedback on guys that I'm not super familiar with. David Shields is legit. Really, really love the arm and what he's cooking up there in Kansas City. 19 years old, already made it to the high A level. And for the sake of one thing that will make Flax like him even more than his 127 Ks to 28 walks.
I think I know what it is.
Old boy's a switch hitter.
Yeah. I had a feeling he was going to be a switch hitter.
I think my favorite thing with David Shields is how the Royals are kind of keeping him at high A for the year and kind of slowly building up his progression. Because, he's definitely pitched good enough to be in Double A this year. I think there's no doubt about that. But I just really like how they're handling his progression, especially from a Royals team that has kind of struggled to develop players as a whole recently. It looks like they're handling Shields very well as a guy who potentially at 21, 22 years old can debut with the Royals.
Majority of his starts have been 5+ innings as well. He's around a little over a 50% rate too on throwing 5+ innings. He's made it to 6 innings a multitude of times. I really like that at this level, right? We've got to start allowing guys to get into that 6th inning if we want them to do it once they finally affect the product at the highest level.
Completely agree. All right, boys, thanks for another great episode of Jackson's Bullpen. Let's have a great rest of the episode.
Look, I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing when I think about the Astros here, and some of this, yes, Dana Brown, some of it, no Dana Brown at the end of the day, is the fact that we both know arms are going to be the X factor down the stretch for this team if they want to make a playoff berth happen. You've got Ethan Pecco, who just got up, right? Number 6 overall prospect in their org by MLB.com, number 4 organizational prospect by Fangraphs. So this is a guy that we know should be able to be an impact arm and in the rotation in this case. They've got 4 other guys at the current moment who are within that top 30 by MLB.com who are all AAA arms or better. 2 of these guys already having thrown somewhat effective major league innings for this team at different portions in time during the season. Bryce Mayer, Miguel Ulola, Jackson Neza, and Alimber Santa. That's the best I got today. Those 4 arms are guys that you may or may not end up getting to see at the highest level sooner than later to help this team move forward. When you move back to the Dana Brown portion of this conversation, I just don't know if we've given him enough time to understand whether or not what he's done is going to be good enough from an organizational perspective at the minor league level, right? He took over in 2023. Yeah. He's had 3 drafts to get there. I'm also not going to say they shouldn't move on because at the end of the day, if the front office is ready to make a move, it's going to be their choice 100% of the time, and they've obviously decided that whatever direction Dana Brown is taking this team is simply not the direction that they want to keep moving. They didn't make the playoffs last year, right? You mentioned it already. They made the ALCS or better 7 straight years, right? There's an expectation of excellence that has been developed around Houston at this point. Brown, unfortunately, wasn't holding that standard in the eyes of ownership.
Now, listen, there's the flip side here where we can assess what he's brought in and we can assess how guys have performed. But there's the bigger assessment that I think is important to understand whether or not he truly should be the guy going forward, and it's the approach. It's who he's willing to listen to within the organization. We just saw this massive shift with the White Sox, and we're seeing them benefit from it. We saw a massive shift with the Nationals. We're seeing them benefit from it. We saw a massive shift with the Marlins, and we're seeing them benefit from it. In today's game, it is very infrequent that a baseball-first, eye-test first, traditional scouting methodology works. It generally hasn't up to this point, to the same degree that the opposite, with what Paul Taboni has done, focusing on analytics, setting a standard and guardrails for who he will and won't entertain within his organization from a development perspective, similarly to what we've seen Chris Getz do, bringing certain guys in that he knows will fit within the development ranks up the chain, draft guys that he knows will fit within that. Dana Brown was a lifelong scout, scouting director, works really tightly with Jim Crane, the owner, allows him to have a little bit more say-so in what decisions get made, and also works really tightly along Jeff Bagwell. And as a fan of baseball, I love Jeff Bagwell, the player. But as a fan of baseball, I don't know that Jeff Bagwell, the front office person, really is willing to dive into the numbers the same way that somebody who didn't play the game at that level is. Because, let's face it, Jeff Bagwell's benefit being in the room is to have an understanding of what it's like to try and be on the field and succeed. The leg up that somebody who wasn't on the field has is they get to think about the game a different way than they felt it. And so when you look at what James Click and Jeff Lunau did when they were in their seat, was they brought in a lot of highly analytical people, guys that are now in other organizations pushing that same methodology, and they leveraged that to basically slim down their scouting department, focus who they were willing to go sign within their organization when they drafted, when they signed free agents, when they traded, based on whether or not they fit a profile. That's Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Kyle Tucker, guys that fit within their development structure so that when they got to the big leagues, there was a level of comfort and knowledge that they understood what their job was. They understood what the expectation of them was. And they had the right people surrounding them when things weren't going right to talk to them in a way that made sense, the way that their brain operated. All of those guys I just mentioned truly are analytical fiends when it comes to trying to figure out how to get better when they're not playing well. I wouldn't say that's the case for all the guys that are on the field right now for the Astros, but it might still be similar to the guys they have in the dugout. And then on the flip side, hiring a guy like Joe Espada after Dusty Baker retires, and Joe Espada, again, not necessarily being the inspiring presence that Dusty Baker was, although we're talking about a Hall of Fame manager, so it's a little bit hard to follow in on that. But being a guy who kind of lets the players run the show, and when the team isn't winning, it's a really tough spot to be in because, you know, A, it's always going to blow back on you, and B, the players don't always know what they need, right? A team like the Dodgers can run and operate that way. A, because they win, and B, because their lineup is old as all get out. It's a bunch of guys who have been around the block and could be managers tomorrow if they really wanted to be. That ain't the Astros. You need an old man in the seat that can run and do that job. And I'll tell you what, this is going to sound really crazy, but reports are out that the goal of the Astros search is to go get somebody from the Guardians organization or the Rays organization or one of these organizations that does the analytics really well. And if they bring back a guy like AJ Hinch, if he doesn't get brought back in Detroit after this year, do not be surprised. Because he understands what the ownership wants. He knows how to play the analytical game. And that is a comfortable place for him to sit in a seat.
AJ Hinch, Alex Cora. We're going to hear about all these guys this offseason when it comes to the Astros, in my opinion, at the end of the day. So.
Alex Cora is going to be the Phillies manager. Barring they win the World Series and stave off Don Mattingly finding a new job, Alex Cora is going to be in the Phillies dugout.
I think you're probably right due to Dombrowski, but at the end of the day, his name's still going to come up for the Astros.
Yeah,
and everybody knows it will, right?
For sure.
So I tend to agree with you that I think there was definitely a shift away from some of the analytical focus. And as we always say, it's a tool. So your ability to blend your understanding as an organization of the analytics, allowing you to retool your organization with repeatable potential developmental outcomes, is something that I believe the Houston organization is trying to get back to with this move. Espada, at the end of the day, and I know you're going to kind of agree with this, he does just become a casualty of Dana Brown no longer being the GM. You're not going to open up your search in a case like this with a less seasoned manager. It just doesn't make sense. You're going to let whoever's at the helm make that decision themselves. So Espada, a casualty to the situation. Flax, let's move on to everybody's favorite segment. Your favorite segment, my favorite segment.
Let's.
Jackson's Bullpen. Jackson, teach us something new. All right, that was Jackson's Bullpen. I know I learned something new. I hope you learned something new. Flax, final topic of the day. I know this sounds crazy, but the Angels have a chance to play spoiler for a lot of AL teams looking to find a playoff berth. And there's one man who's at the front of this push, and that would be starting pitcher Ryan Johnson. Very well known, Flax, or most people know him to be the most recent member of the did not play in the minor leagues club prior to getting an opportunity at the highest level. For sake of entertainment, the last two guys to completely skip the minor leagues, Garrett Crochet in 2020. Obviously, COVID had something to do with that. There was no minor league baseball for him to play. They preferred that he got an opportunity to play in the White Sox organization at the time. But the best one, just because most people aren't going to remember this, Mike Leake of the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, baby.
He did not throw any minor league innings before getting called up to the major league level. Let's level set here, Flax. For those of you who don't know who Ryan Johnson is, he's a former second-round pick, competitive balance round specifically. He's been electric in August. And this is a guy who had been scuffling. His ERA coming into August, by the way, unfortunately was in the 7s. However, in August, 1.69 ERA over 4 games started, a 20 and 21.1 innings pitched. He threw against Baltimore, Texas, Kansas City, and Texas again. So technically speaking, 3 different games against teams that are pushing for wild card berths. The Angels won 3 out of 4 of those games. That's one of the big pieces here. And ironically, Flax, the only loss was to the Royals, who are not on a playoff push. So we all know what was going on here at the end of the day. He was really good, as you mentioned on Twitter, all throughout the last 7 of his starts. I like Johnson a lot. He has a very interesting profile that we're going to get into. What did you see out of him in those last 7 starts? Because this guy looks like he's ready to literally ruin wildcard teams' hopes.
Yeah, there's a little bit of luck involved. He's still not throwing as many strikes as I'd like him to throw. But, he does this weird thing where when he releases the ball, it's a unique arm angle, but an arm angle that's extremely consistent pitch to pitch. So even though he's not getting deep into ball games, he's still going through lineups 3 times, and he's doing it where he's getting insanely weak contact, right? K numbers aren't through the roof. K to walk numbers are almost at a 1-to-1 ratio over those 7 starts against playoff potential teams in the AL. But those are teams that offensively aren't great at the same time. So he's taking advantage a little bit of teams that are struggling while also, doing a good job of keeping the ball off the barrel, getting himself into favorable situations later into his starts. What's crazier when you think about the situation that the Angels are in is they've got 31 games left. 14 of those 31 games are against the Guardians, the Twins, and the Mariners. 3 of those teams, or those 3 teams, are of the 7 who are reasonably in playoff contention for that last AL wildcard spot. My guess is that he'll probably get 4 to 5 of those starts in a 14-game stretch because of the way that those series are set up.
Well, I've got you. He's going to get starts against Philly, New York, Boston, Seattle, Minnesota, Seattle. All of his starts down the stretch will be against teams with an opportunity to be in the playoffs.
And 3 of those being games that he could reasonably make an impact on that wild card race. But in general, I think the Angels as a whole are going to play spoiler because, let's face it, they're playing better baseball right now than they had for a big stretch in the middle of the season there. Their pitching staff as a whole has been fantastic. Walbert Urena has been incredible. Grayson Rodriguez is finally healthy and showing who Grayson Rodriguez is, which is awesome. I love seeing that for him. George Klassen starting to figure it out. Reed Detmers has been the Reed Detmers that we expected him to be, leveraging the breaking ball. And the biggest piece of it all, they're finally using analytics to make a game plan so that they actually throw good pitching at the right time. They make good decisions for matchups for guys coming out of the bullpen. I don't know why in the world it took this long to do, but it's a pitching staff that's at least going to keep them in ball games. The curiosity is whether or not the offense is going to show up against pitching staffs that will also give them fits.
You can argue that how about anybody but Zach Neto shows up to hit right now? And I hate saying that with Mike Trout in the lineup.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's been like lately for them. It's truly what it's been like. And then when I turn around, I want to point out one of the things, and you've mentioned the starting rotation, Yusei Kikuchi also healthy. This is the first time, or going to be the first time in 2026, that the Angels have basically the full starting rotation that they hoped to have for majority of the season. At least 1 through 4. Right? Because Urena, he made his way into this rotation through pure grit.
He forced
Good for him. People expected Klassen to be here. He's been a high-end prospect for them for quite a while, and when he was ready, in 2026, there was an expectation that he would take one of these spots. So now you have the starting arms, right? Your bullpen got exponentially better when Ben Joyce came back. We're talking about a back end of the bullpen, Flax, who were 20 and 41 so far this year in save opportunities, including Ben Joyce. When you take Ben Joyce out of the equation, they were 17 of 37 in save opportunities. 17 of 37. That's less than 50. They were blowing more than 50% of save opportunities. That's awful. Like the Nats are doing that right now, right? So
at the same time.
At the end of the day, I think that they're kind of set up on the arm side, making better decisions like you mentioned. They've got a guy who can legitimately shut down the game and get you those most important 3 outs. A rotation that has 5 guys who any night, no question, could go out there and throw you a quality start.
I mean,
I really, really think that if they can just swing the bat a little bit, there's going to be some playoff teams who are a little bit sad.
Obviously, F-WAR for relief pitching is only so, foundationally impactful. But you've got 3 guys who, on their own, individually, in less than 10 innings apiece, have gained more F-WAR as a relief arm over the last week than everyone else in the bullpen with way more innings thrown. Right? Like,
Nice.
and again, like, I don't know that Luke Murphy is going to keep, throwing as well as he has for the last 9.2 innings. Ben Joyce realistically could also just be Mason Miller. He has the stuff to do it. And then on the flip side, you've got Blake Weinman, who has also been disgusting for 7 innings. I don't know that these guys are going to keep being that. But the fact that they have bullpen arms that are powerful and can shut down games late, the real question, like you said, is just going to be how much is this team going to be able to put up 4+ runs a game? Because that's really all they're going to need if their pitching does what their pitching's supposed to.
Totally agree, right? And it's got to start with more than just Zach Neto. I also would throw out just my opinion from an analytical perspective. They got to move Neto out of that leadoff spot if they can get anybody else to hit, because he's the one person who's consistently able to find gaps and drive in runs at the current moment. Him finding himself in the 2-hole would probably generate more runs for this team. However, the flip side of that analytical statement is while nobody else is hitting, getting Zach Neto 1 additional at bat guaranteed per game probably does right now give you the best opportunity to win.
Last thing I've got for you on the Angels, former Rookie of the Year pitcher Michael Fulmer recently DFA'd by the Angels.
Damn.
I didn't even know he was still pitching. I'm going to be honest with you.
Vandy?
Michael Fulmer? No, you're thinking of Carson Fulmer. Michael Fulmer was on the Tigers and was drafted out of high school. And he's from Oklahoma.
They were drafted relatively close to each other from a year's perspective, I believe. We'll look it up later. It's not important.
think that I believe that they got to the big leagues at the same time. But they were drafted, I believe, like 3 years apart because Carson Fulmer went to college and Michael Fulmer did not.
Well, that Flax. Now you're just using your brain. Okay, now you're just talking sense. Come on, man, help me out here.
Guy won Rookie of the Year.
Well, that's how that rolls. Chris Coughlin, and I'll leave it at that.
Kyle
Flax.
Lewis.
I love Kyle Lewis. I'm still so upset about that. Injuries. They
Also-
ruined my boy.
Also a COVID Rookie of the Year, but yeah.
All right. Flax, final thoughts today.
Final thoughts today. I don't think I have any, if I'm going to be honest. I got one, actually. Friend of the program, Jack DeLongchamp, has been on the broadcast, a part of the team at the Little League World Series. If you haven't yet, tune in to watch him, if nothing else. And go shout him out and say nice things about the job he's been doing on Twitter, because he deserves it, and he's great at his job. And if anybody was meant to take over and do really great things, both in college baseball and Little League baseball, he is that person.
Agreed. Those can be part of my final thoughts too. You're a dog. DeLong champs because you're a champ today. Flax, my final thoughts are I promised people we would break down Paul Skeens. I thought I didn't do what I was going to do justice at the end of the day because I've had family in town. So we will still do that. I did find some interesting tidbits that I think are worthwhile. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag here, but he's probably a little tired, people. That probably has something to do with it, as Flax mentioned last week. But we will talk Paul Skeens here sooner than later. Well, Flax, we're going to end it how we always do. Please make sure that you share the podcast with your friends and family if you enjoyed everything you heard today, streaming on your favorite platforms, Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. And of course, make sure to come say hi to us on social media, wherever you digest social media content. X, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, really wherever you might find that content. But at the end of the day, Flax, we end where we end. Have